Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Call our meeting to order. March 13th, 2012 at 8:31 a.m. Right now, I'll run down the voting member list. Ms. Melanie Anderson, present. Mr. Tommy Clay, present. John Kreisman, present. Jeff Fadley. We have today, Mr. Hoover is here.
Yeah, Mr. Fadley's here.
I'm sorry. Good. Randy Huckabee.
Absent.
Present. Mr. Harry Moldenhauer, present. And myself. Next item on the agenda, item number 2, is the election of officers. John?
Mr. Chairman, you see in your agenda item number 2 the time for our annual election for officers. Current office holders being Steve Nelson as chairperson and second vice chairman Thomas Hoover. All of those are subject to renewal if they so choose to want to renew their positions. And at this time, let me turn over to...
They've not served 2 years.
That is correct.
It's the beginning of the first year, so according to the interlocal agreement, they are eligible to serve a second term in the present position if they choose to do so.
I'd make a motion that Steve remains for his second year as chairman.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
We'll declare the floor open for nominations for first vice chairman.
I make the motion, Tommy Clay, fill the position as first vice chair. If he'll accept.
Second that motion.
Motion second, is there further action on that? Do I hear a motion that nomination cease?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So now vote on the nominations. Nominations are ceased. So those in favor of Mr. Clay being our vice chairperson should say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Motion carries.
The floor is open for nominations for the second vice chair.
I make the nomination that Mr. Hoover continue as second vice chair.
I'll second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Very good. Your slated officers will do that. Mr. Chairman, proceed.
Yes, sir. Moving on to item number 3, meeting minutes from our previous meeting of February 14th, 2012. Any board members have any additions or deletions to the minutes or corrections?
No corrections, that's all. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion by Mr. Hoover to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 4, our consent agenda, which consists of the following. Finance report, invoice and update from our colleague in Fay, invoice from Belleville and Sobey LBA versus OUA lawsuit, invoice from Robert J. Gorman and Associates LBA versus OUA lawsuit. Item number 9, invoice from Eckler Engineering regarding the vacuum station number 1 rehab. And number 10, surplus items.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that we pull the finance report. I just had a couple of questions.
Okay. Rule number 5, finance report. Any other board members wish to pull anything else from the consent agenda?
Number 10, too, the surplus item.
All right, number 10 as well. Do I have a motion then to pull items 6, 7, 8, and 9?
Second.
I have a second.
There was a second to accept.
To accept, yes.
Who made the first?
Mr. Hoover. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, finance report.
Catch that at the end. Pull it up, pull it out.
Bring it up at the end, all right.
That's how you-
Moving on to item number 11, request for use of OUA equipment.
Mr. Chairman, you have in your board package a request that was made for the use of some OUA equipment for the O.L. Rawlinson Junior Barbecue Competition. More specifically, they asked if they can use our portable light tower and a generator for this use. Certainly the benefit to the OUA, besides the public benefit, the internal benefit is to the OUA, we get to exercise and use some of our equipment. The undersheriff is supposed to be here this morning to make a discussion, or at least make the request. Robbie, you're not here for it. So I guess he might be here later on in the meeting or something has come up, but the issue has, in the past, typically the OUA has not loaned out equipment for public use, and I thought it would be appropriate for the board to have this discussion on this specific event or any event in the future.
Free samples for each at the barbecue, we get free samples. I put a note in there to ask about that.
That can be arranged.
That's an in-kind contribution to a 286 nonprofit. Anyhow, I was kind of surprised that we don't have a policy for this, and I think that we should. Maybe something that we need to work on.
Well,
Specifically is the, if you loan it out to, in this case, the sheriff's department, my biggest question is if it's damaged, and how it would be repaired. And of course, they'd say, oh yeah, we'll fix that. But when it came down to it, you might be looking at $100, and again, it may be, $4,000 or $5,000 repair or something. Plus you got heavy equipment, other things that from time to time somebody, another government entity, or in this case, it's not even, it's a government sponsored thing, but who's going to be responsible?
Well, clearly we have interacted with other governmental agencies.
Oh, yes.
Whether it was something to be used by the city or the county or one of their departments. This being something slightly outside the norm of a government sponsored deal was the issue that I just wanted to kind of get clarification from the board as to whether or not we could look favorably on this request.
I also brought up hold harmless for Tom, the one like we use for stuff in the parks, for trailers and all that stuff that we loan out, and we do it for the Boy Scouts, and we probably end up having one at this facility, at this deal, and we just do a hold harmless, and any damages, you get signed off on. I'm all for helping, especially something like this.
I can't speak 100% for the sheriff's department, but I will tell you this. Having been working with the sheriff's department in search and rescue 30-some odd years as captain, and having my own equipment being used, they have always covered me with respect of hold harmless and fixing anything that would be broken. I think the relationship between the OUA and the sheriff's department is one such that I would be in favor, without any reservations, to loan the equipment out with the knowledge that, number one, there'd be a hold harmless and the liability would be on the sheriff's department. And I don't think Sheriff May nor under Sheriff Noel Chandler, Noel Stevens rather, would have any objections whatsoever in that regard.
And again, our issue is certainly from a standpoint of the light tower, you know, not a lot of potential there, but you talk about hooking a generator up to a piece of equipment or whatever, and there could be some real issues involved there. So the hold harmless agreement might be the cover that we need to protect the OUA's interests.
The only question I've got is who is actually going to use the equipment? You don't say in the proposal here.
I know last year Noel run that whole deal.
And that's my understanding, this year he is running it. The generator, what I can't tell you is whether it's for, you know, their public address system or whether it's hooked up to, you know, vendor
My question
booths.
is what entity? What is it, is it the sheriff's department? Is it a nonprofit
Sheriff's Department.
entity, or is it, I mean, it's another.
It's being
government-
sponsored by the sheriff's department,
Under
the
the
way I
auspices.
understood it.
Right, it's under the control
Because I can't tell.
No, it's not.
I don't think so.
No, it's not.
It's
It's under
not?
him separately, under Noel. It's his own fundraiser for Oil Ross, and it is not under the.
It doesn't have anything to do with the
No,
sheriff's
sir.
department?
That was
They
my
asked us
understanding.
for the same thing, we said no.
That was my understanding, it was for, separate from the sheriff's office.
Seems the consensus of the board is to allow this to happen. I think though we need to get something in writing, other than, you know, he said, she said. And then, we do need some kind of policy though. It's nothing different than the city asking to light up the Christmas tree in the park over there. You know, what, it didn't cost that much, it was no biggie, but should something have occurred that, we would ultimately, you know, cost the ratepayers. You know, I'm not worried about the board, but it's the ratepayers, you know, that's their property, or so to speak.
Well, keep in mind, we've also had other requests for the vacant property down here where
Yeah.
somebody wanted to have a bake sale or a barbecue or,
Yeah.
you know, a yard sale. I mean, the possibilities are endless as to how we decide who gets what use. And certainly the policy in the past has been a flat no to everyone.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we're at now as a crossroads.
I'm like Tommy, I think we gotta have some kind of policy in place. I don't know
If we're gonna do this,
Yeah.
yeah, if we're gonna do something like that.
I don't know if today's the day to make a policy.
No.
But,
Well, we
but
can-
we do need to do something with Noel. And if we, I still have no issues with a hold harmless and getting everything documented through Tom. I don't have a problem loaning this to the O.L. Rollerson Junior Barbecue Competition.
Is that in the form of a motion?
I make a motion that we get a hold harmless, that Tom's approval of the hold harmless, and allow them to use this and return it in the same shape that they picked it up in.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, any further discussion?
I have a question. If we're going to be looking at making a policy, wouldn't okaying something like this now possibly set a precedent that we can't overcome in our new policy?
Your policy should override this because you're not in violation of the policy. You frankly don't have one right this minute. So you could certainly fashion one, having this in mind, and one of the requirements of the policy would be the maintenance of the same kind of criteria that you're talking about, the condition of loaning this equipment here, so that you're not doing anything any different. The, some of the safeguards that ought to be in that is exactly who is gonna qualify for you to be able to loan the equipment to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a problem with fellow governmental entities with that kind of thing, but when you're talking about private organizations, you'll have to carefully delineate who would fall under the umbrella that you would consider to loan the equipment to.
And John, and I was reading this, I was thinking, what if you had an independent contractor come in here, he's doing some work and his backhoe blew up and or, you know, his digging machine or whatever he's using it, and we loan him ours to finish the job because he only has a day or so left. I mean, does that happen? Does that happen?
Something similar to that happens, and let me explain that. When we contract out, like our directional drilling of
Yeah.
our piping, The person that comes in for directional drilling does utilize, or our construction crew has helped them with the use of like a rubber tire backhoe. We don't just loan that out to any contractor coming in off the street, but if it was a contractor in this case that had subcontracted with us for some work, they work in conjunction with our construction crew. That's kind of similar to what you're asking about.
Well, sort of, kind of, I'm just saying what they're, they're right in the job or in the middle and, it's almost the weekend and their machine tears up. Say, oh, no problem, we got one in the shop, here, borrow ours.
I can tell you, to my knowledge, that has never happened. A contractor doing another job for somebody else coming in and borrowing equipment. Mechanical equipment. Now, they may have come in and said, we accidentally hit this line and we need a repair coupling that will take 6 hours to get from the coast or whatever. We have sold them those parts or they have replaced them, but the use of equipment, no.
Well, see, the other thing is you may want to limit this to small ponds.
Yeah, and this is also a charity,
I understand, but
Yeah.
if somebody wanted a backhoe,
yeah.
if somebody wanted a trencher,
Yeah.
I don't know that it'd be wise to be
Right.
loaning that kind of.
Well, I said, that's my point, is where do you stop, Anyhow, I think some kind of policy definitely needs to be established. It's either a yes or no, and really it's gonna be tough to decide who you're gonna loan stuff to and who not, to let somebody borrow something. And, like I said, old armless damage, there's so many things there that,
Well, the whole idea is this being done in the spirit of community cooperation.
and that's great. But maybe not all the ratepayers wanna donate this to the spirit of community cooperation.
No, I'm talking about this instance. that
Oh,
we're
yeah,
talking
this
about.
instance in that, right.
But this is still a private fundraiser that doesn't have funding behind them if something were to damage our equipment.
Yeah, that's true.
If something happens to our stuff out there and Noel can't pay for it. So who pays? Our ratepayers.
Or our insurance company.
Or our insurance. Still our ratepayers.
Mr. Chairman, we still do have the motion on the floor.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, we could try to, as staff, working with Tom and other folks, we can try to put together a draft of a guidance document or policy that can be brought back at a future meeting if that's the board's pleasure.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask you to skip this next item and go down one more? I've got to
Yes, sir.
make a phone call on this.
Yes, sir, go right ahead. Moving down to item 13, vehicle and generator oil service bids.
Mr. Chairman, this was just included in your board package, and it's really an informational item. There was a request made that we put the oil change, fuel filters, air filters out for bid for our equipment, and just to let you know that we did put it out for bid, and these are the results of the bid. Again, unless there's other board action taken, this is for informational purposes only.
So Lube Tech is your recommended, or that's who you were gonna give a bid to?
Lube Tech appears to be the overall lower bidder for just the oil change services in the three categories, yes, sir.
Okay.
The contract hasn't been let yet.
There has nothing been done at this point.
When are you gonna let this?
I would imagine,
What is-
since we get the paperwork done at the end of this, after this meeting, they have to supply us some minor documentation, some paperwork, and then we can issue some purchase orders and get this arranged.
Okay. So this time around, we have, Lube Tech is gonna do all the heavy equipment, all the stationary equipment, And the light vehicles?
The automotive and light trucks, the stationary generators, and the heavy equipment. The only equipment that will still be left for our shop mechanics to do would be the portable equipment, you know, like the Mudhog pumps and the mobile generators, things of that nature will still be done internally by our shop mechanic.
Because they're basically as needed.
Yeah, they're right there at the shop, and they have to run them periodically, and then they use them, and then they use them sometimes on this truck and others. It's very highly erratic on when they use those, so it's kind of harder to do. The stationary generators are on automatic sequencing. They get run so many hours every week at a set time. It's easier to project when those have to have service done.